welcome to the Upper 90 USMNT World Cup roster review, the snubs, surprises, and stupid picks from Gregg Berhalter. We can start with the goalkeepers, of course. I think undoubtedly whether you want to call it a snub or whether you want to call it a surprise, Aubie, Zach Steffen, which is it?
I want to say that, it's a little bit of a snub, but he's kind of done it to himself a little bit, I feel. Matt Turner and Ethan Horvath are on here. Absolutely.
Both
straightforward options.
Yeah,
so it
Sean
came down
Johnson.
to the third keeper, which was either going to be Sean Johnson or Zach Steffen. I personally might have taken Zach, but,
I would have taken him too. I'm surprised that Gregg didn't take him also because Gregg loves him so much. We've seen the loyalty that Gregg has shown Zach, whether it be through injury or benching or whatever. He's continued to call him up, not only call him up, but start him very, very often when he is healthy. And so in the biggest call-up for Gregg to then not continue that and show the faith in Zach was just very surprising to me. So I will call him more of a surprise than a snub, even though I think he's probably both.
Yeah.
Moving on to the defenders, though, which defenders surprised you? For me, Cameron Carter-Vickers surprised me a little bit.
Really?
I'm not. I don't think I think it's a good pick. I'm glad he's there.
Right.
But I didn't necessarily expect it. Is all. Tim Ream, of course, being the other one. I'm also very happy he's there, but didn't expect him to be.
I would say, for me, Cameron Carter-Vickers was a little expected. Tim Ream was not as much, just because he's been out of the picture, and so I didn't expect Berhalter to switch his mind about him and bring him back in. But of course, then we look at the other ones. Walker Zimmerman was always going to be there.
Of course.
And Aaron Long.
Well, that is where we get to our first stupid pick, isn't it? It's not a surprise at all.
No, not at all.
It's fully expected.
It's been written in stone since he had him at the U.S. camp when he was injured, just to be there.
Right.
So
For
you
vibes.
always knew he was going to be with the squad.
Which makes it even more of a stupid pick, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you
it's
know
just
that somebody who
absolutely
shouldn't be there, you know they're going.
Yeah.
Makes it even worse to me. Joe Scally, I know that you're a big fan. I was a little bit surprised to see him go.
I feel like our depth after Dest and Anthony has not been great, and so when you have a guy like Joe Scally who's been playing at Mönchengladbach, that especially with Berhalter giving him calls in recent camps, I felt like he was going to be on this roster, and I would have been rather upset if he wasn't.
No, I'm happy he is because I do think he's our best backup left back behind Jedi, and I think that he provides a much different left back to Jedi. Right, Jedi is flying forward, very up and down the wing, very fast, very involved in the attack. Joe Scally can get involved and can cross the ball, but he's one-on-one, very defensively solid. And so it's great to have somebody like that in the roster, I think.
And then we look at our backup right back options. We knew DeAndre Yedlin was going to be here.
Yeah.
Which
he's basically the only player who's been to a World Cup, so I'm not mad at it for that reason.
There's somebody else, but they were never going to be on this roster, were they? John Brooks was not going to be here.
That's the snub to me.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's multiple snubs at center back, to be honest. You could have gone with Brooks. You could have gone with McKenzie. You could have gone with Palmer Brown. Any of them. And Aaron Long it's not good.
Who would you have gone with instead of Aaron Long?
I mean, it has to be John Brooks.
Yeah. I think so as well. I think it has to be John Brooks. But I think we both expected him not to be on the roster, so it's like it's a snub, but it's also an expected snub. Whereas maybe those other three that you mentioned could have gotten on it somehow, could have snuck on the roster. And that's I felt like maybe CCV was fighting with those three a little bit more than Aaron Long was fighting with those three.
Unfortunately, but probably right, yeah.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, you have Yedlin on here, who I'm not the biggest fan of him recently, but I mean, he does provide that World Cup experience, so I understand it. The other pick Shaq Moore.
Yeah.
Completely shocked to see him on the
Really?
roster.
Are you? Okay, tell me why.
I mean, he really hasn't been involved at all. And he's been rather quiet as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
So we were looking at that, probably going maybe Reggie Cannon because Berhalter loves him.
Right.
All of a sudden, Shaq Moore's on there was a complete shock to me. How did you feel about seeing that? Was it straightforward for you, or?
I wasn't as surprised as you were, maybe because I watch a little bit more MLS. Not that he's been, that great for Nashville, but I think we know that Gregg has an MLS bias, which continually hurts us. I wouldn't have been surprised to see Reggie Cannon either, though, so I think it could have gone either way, and I wouldn't have been surprised nor disappointed with either one. I think they both provide something. Yeah, maybe Reggie Cannon would have been a slightly better pick, but to me, it's somebody who's going to be on the bench either way, and so as a sub, you never know what they're going to provide. Maybe Shaq Moore will be the right decision. Maybe Reggie Cannon would have. It's a toss-up, really, for me. But in the midfield, talk to me. Snub surprises, stupid picks.
I don't think there's any surprises here. I think the only surprise is maybe Aronson being listed as a midfielder. Besides that, because Berhalter tends to list people that can play on the wings as forwards.
Right.
And Aronson has, at least to my knowledge, because it's pretty fluid, but when they tend to categorize it, I usually see him in forwards, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, all the names on this list: Aronson, Acosta, Adams, De La Torre, McKennie, Musa, Roldan. There's no real surprises there. I feel like they're mostly good picks, except Roldan.
Yeah, Roldan's a stupid pick.
That's a stupid pick.
And
and especially, there's a lot of names you could call in, but Tillman is one that had been in recent rosters that you expected to be here because Berhalter showed a lot of trust in him, and he's been playing pretty well for Rangers. So I'm actually pretty surprised that he didn't make it.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. He was my snub, Tillman, for the Roldan, who's definitely a stupid pick, but can even be called a surprise. I know that a lot of people expected him to go, and I thought, there's a very high chance he goes, but when it's somebody like Christian Roldan, who's literally there for vibes, it's like I really hope, I hope until the moment that the roster is announced, even if I hear otherwise prior, that he just isn't on there, because I hope that, you make the right decision, but Berhalter just didn't, and I can say the same thing moving to forwards about his Seattle teammate, Jordan Morris. I expected him to go, so it's not a surprise, but it is a stupid pick, and probably the stupidest pick, although against Aaron Long, it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. But Jordan Morris, why is he going to the World Cup? It is so stupid. I know that you're going to agree, so the question I will ask you is... I
actually do have something to say about that, though. I actually do think Jordan Morris is a surprise.
Really?
Because I expected Berhalter to take Paul Arriola instead of Jordan Morris.
Which also would have been a stupid pick.
It also would have been a stupid pick, but that's the stupid pick I expected him to make instead of Jordan Morris, who's been injured for a long time and just barely came back. So I expected him to go with Arriola because he's been a big piece that Berhalter's just continuously brought back.
Yeah.
So I'm actually pretty surprised. It doesn't change anything.
No.
Not that much, but...
Not much.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I was going to say, do you consider Ricardo Pepi a snub? Because I think that's the question a lot of people are asking. A lot of people saying he should have been there instead of Jordan Morris. No doubt, but there's also talk about, Haji Wright getting in. I think that was the surprise from this group for me, was absolutely Haji Wright. Not that it's a bad pick. I definitely don't think it's stupid.
Right.
But surprising, and I would have chosen Pepi over Morris, although there's another snub that I will get to in a second. But first, Pepi, snub or no?
Yes. Just barely, because there's 3 strikers on this roster, which is Sargent, Wright, and Ferreira. You can get into bringing another striker instead of Morris, but if we were looking at this of, okay, he's bringing 3 strikers. Sargent being there makes sense. He made the right decision.
Yeah.
there's someone that absolutely needs to be here, which is Jordan Pefok.
That is my snub.
Absolutely shocking that he's not.
That is my snub.
Well, at least shocking to someone that thinks rationally about how to pick a roster. With Berhalter, you kind of expect something like that to happen. And then, before we get into talking about Pefok, that third spot kind of came down to Jesus, Haji, or Pepe.
Right.
And I think that I would go with Pepe out of those three, but it is a lot tighter. And so it's like, yes, it is a snub, but not as big as Jordan Pefok. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, Pefok, I just don't understand how you leave Jordan Pefok off of this roster. And Berhalter was asked about this, right? He said, why Pefok? Mainly it's why Wright over Pefok, right? Because Ferreira's a different type of striker. Sargent's a different type of striker. Wright and Pefok are as similar as we're going to compare in this pool, because they're strong, beast type of number 9s that will push people around and score goals like that. And Berhalter's basically said that Haji Wright is in really good form, and that's why he got in, right? And I put out this tweet because it makes no sense to me. Haji Wright has 10 goals in 15 games in the Turkish Super League and Cup, right? It's great numbers, don't get me wrong. 10 goals in 15 games is fantastic, but we're talking about the Turkish Super League, right? Jordan Pefok has 4 goals and 3 assists in 14 games, so 7 versus 10 in fewer games goal contributions, but he's doing it in the German Bundesliga and Cup with Union Berlin. He's doing it in just such a better league and putting up nearly the same numbers, but not only goals, also assists. There's no way to me you leave Jordan Pefok off of this roster, even if it means leaving Wright at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this reasoning is one of many Berhalter quotes that has been broken down and makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But yeah, that's just, it's a bit depressing to have somebody making those terrible decisions.
Yeah.
But then I guess we can get into the wingers as well, which is Pulisic, Morris, Reyna, and Weah. Which I feel is pretty straightforward. You could also include Aronson with that list, even though he's with the midfielders.
Right.
And like we talked about, I think the only surprise for me is that he actually took Morris over Areola.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I think it's just more about the strikers really than anything. We talked about it. Pepe, he's the first player to score at least 3 times in the final round of World Cup qualifying and then failed to make the squad. And Ferreira, I think you bring him, he's been really good, but I don't know. It's a questionable roster. It's one that I initially was ambivalent about. I feel like there's some stupid picks, but we expect that knowing Berhalter, and so knowing Gregg Berhalter and knowing what to expect, I can't really be disappointed with the squad that he's brought, I think. And so for that, I guess I have to be happy with it. But to have to be happy with that makes me feel sad.
Yeah, and especially when you have Berhalter in charge, you kind of have to rely on players that are just so proven that they're going to carry the side, because there's no way he can't pick them. And I think for the most part, we're lucky and that a lot of those players are here. Obviously, John Brooks probably should be one of those players, but that's been this whole situation that's developed. Instead, we've had Chris Richards, who's been, I feel, a big piece for us because he's been a solid defender. Gregg recognizes just how good he is and has always considered him in that group. And of course, his injury just kind of kept pushing him back and rolls him out.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Chris Richards. I wish he would have been able to be in the squad. But yeah, with that, we'll head into the World Cup. First game is against Wales, of course, on Monday. And hopefully that this squad is good enough to get some results that we want and get out of the groups. You think they can do that?
In my predictions, I actually have them going third, but I really hope I'm wrong. It's a group that we really should be getting out of, but the roster just makes me nervous about that. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think we'll make it just through the groups, hopefully. So that's my prediction for now. If we make the knockouts, we'll make some more predictions. But thank you for watching. Please drop a like and a subscription. It really, really helps us out. We're going to start making more of these type of videos for you on this channel. And so we will see you next time.